The mainstream media tries their best to defend companies because they want to stay on their good side. They want to continue to receive promotional material, and a lot of these companies are pushing messages that they generally agree with. And now, TheGamer has put up an article defending shows like The Acolyte and decisions made in Assassin's Creed Shadows, saying review bombing something is a sign you're way too online. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I don't like TheGamer. I don't like a lot of the mainstream gaming outlets because they're such shills, but it's no surprise to see TheGamer putting up an article trying their best to defend generally awful products. It says one of the many ways that the internet has gotten worse in the last decade is that it's no longer possible to know if a movie, TV show, or game is bad, or if it just features a queer person, woman, or person of color. When some angry nerds get together and decide to review bomb something, it doesn't take many to completely tank an audience score already complaining about the very people they need to read their content, already attacking gamers, just calling us all angry nerds. This isn't, again, very shocking either, but it is pretty pathetic that they need to actually say this instead of allow us to have our own opinions. That's all that this boils down to, is they are mad that we have opinions that do not align with theirs. There is a way to judge if a movie, TV show, or game is good or bad, and that's by playing it yourself. It is rich that they're complaining about audience scores when audience scores are way more genuine than critics. Critics are bought and paid for. A lot of the time, critics feel like it's okay to give something a higher score because they support the company. Maybe the company is implementing policies in the workplace that they agree with. Maybe their friends work at the company. Maybe they just got a boatload of promotional material, or they were paid to positively review something. And we know that happens extremely often, is critics get paid to see something and then they feel swayed by that sweet paycheck. It is significantly better to believe and look at user scores over critic scores. If you genuinely feel like a user score is not representative of the final product, yeah, you can leave your own score. It's as simple as that. It says review bombing obscures how audiences actually feel. Just because, let's say, 100 people leave negative reviews doesn't mean 100 people can't leave positive reviews. If enough people like something, they will say it, and they will be vocal. They will drown out the individuals who don't like something. And there happens to be situations where so many people dislike something that, yeah, the positive reviews are overshadowed, but that doesn't mean that we're toxic review bombers. It means that we're just giving our genuine opinions. I mean, leaving negative reviews is one of the only ways people can communicate their dislike for something to, let's say, game developers, or one of the only ways they can communicate their love for something by leaving positive reviews. It's not like you can only leave negative reviews. You can leave positive ones too. These people are either chronically online themselves and block critics, or they ignore social media entirely. And that's the problem with game developers, is they take everything too personally. And again, they're either chronically online and block critics, or they ignore social media and they know absolutely nothing about what is being talked about with their product. But when a game is getting, let's say, hundreds of negative reviews, then they might actually listen to what we have to say. I encourage my followers constantly to leave positive or negative reviews depending on how they feel about something. And that's not encouraging review bombing, though. It's encouraging people to speak up for themselves. They, meaning the media, will label it negative and toxic review bombing because they want to support the product. Like, they use examples here such as The Last Jedi. They're saying that it has thousands of negative reviews. It has a user score of 4.1, but it made $1.3 billion. Yeah, because people were still giving Disney Star Wars a chance, so they went to theaters and swiped their credit cards, but they ended up disliking it, the direction that they went in with that movie. They also say The Acolyte has a user score of 3.9 on Metacritic, and that isn't a good score, but it also represents the opinion of a statistically insignificant portion of the audience. That clearly isn't actually the case, because the majority of reviews left on The Acolyte's IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes are negative. This is how people feel. People did not like it. They always say statistically insignificant portions of fan bases. Like, they will say, oh, there's only a small group of people, a minority of gamers, who are angry about, let's say, Sweet Baby Inc.'s involvement in a game, but that's clearly not true, given there are Steam curator lists like DEI Detected with over 400,000 people that pay attention, and those are individuals who boycott Sweet Baby Inc. games and do not want to purchase them. 400,000 people isn't an insignificant amount of individuals. You know what is insignificant when it comes to a group of people in a sphere? Modern audiences. There aren't many modern audiences buying these games. You look at Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn. It peaked on Steam at 650 players, roughly. That is awful, and it is already down in a week after release to 100 people in game. That is, really what I talk about when I say developers are making games for modern audiences. They're allowed to, they're free to, but those groups of people are very, very small. Do you really think that you should be making a game for 600 people when you could be making it for 10,000 or 20,000? I guess their priorities are the modern audience, but clearly these people don't actually either show up to buy games because they're not gamers, because they don't care, or they just simply don't exist. It says this kind of aggregation is usually fine if you want to get a read on an uncontroversial project like, say, Twisters, but it's extremely easy to manipulate. That's hilarious, given the critics didn't rate Twisters amazingly, and there were several critics who said Twisters got a lower score because they didn't shove a message into the movie, because they didn't talk about things like climate change. So that is absolutely fucking hilarious that that's the example that they use. It says if a YouTuber with a large following asks their viewers to go review bomb something, they can radically shift a key metric of whether or not it's considered a success. I personally have never told my audience to go and review bomb something, and I haven't really heard any other creators in my sphere, in our sphere, who they're clearly referring to, actually say go review bomb something. We only say go and rate it genuinely. If you loved it, give it a positive. If you hated it, give it a negative. But that's not asking people to go and review bomb something. It says, though, in other words, if you're review bombing something, then there's a good chance you're extremely online. That is rich, coming from someone who themselves is chronically online. So this article was written by Andrew King, and if we look at a list of things that they've written, I mean, 1 day ago, 2 days ago, there's multiple from 2 days ago, multiple from 3, 4, 5. I mean, they are putting up articles every single day, which, yeah, it is their job to do, so I'm not criticizing that. My point, though, is that they are also chronically online, and so chronically online that they feel they have to put up an article talking about how mean people can be on the internet, which just is absurd. They, of course, talk about Helldivers 2, and how a review bomb pushed the publisher to reverse its decision to require a PlayStation Network account. That is not something negative. We spoke up and we saw change because of it. That should be praised by journalists who are saying gamers actually do matter, but instead, womp, womp, womp. They're calling us terrible people for simply making our voices be heard by these companies. So it's not very shocking to see articles like this being published. They are triggered over the fact that audiences do have a voice and gamers are not just angry nerds, and we can actually make change happen within the industry that they absolutely hate. They do not like the change that we want to see, so we constantly get attacked for it. So I will be keeping my eye out for any other articles that are published like this. I'm sure that we are going to see more with the upcoming releases of games like Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Shadows. Only time will tell, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.